Hello, my name is Jimmy Hung, and I'm a Senior Deputy Prosecutor for King County. I've had the honor and privilege of representing the people of King County for the last 14 years. I've helped hold murderers and rapists accountable and have brought justice to thousands of crime victims. Today, I'm the chair of our juvenile unit, and I oversee all the juvenile offenders that are prosecuted in King County. But today, I'm also here to tell you that I'm a criminal. If we're to define a criminal as someone who has committed a crime in the past, then count me guilty. But I bet that if all of you thought about the things that you've done in your lives as well, you probably find that you might be a criminal as well. And I bet many of you, or most of you, would think back to the time when you were a teenager. For me, it was when I was 17. I was a senior class vice president, and it was my job to get a group of kids together and build our homecoming float. The theme for homecoming was at the movies. And so we decided that we wanted to recreate that iconic scene from the movie King Kong, and we're going to perch King Kong on top of the Empire State Building. The big problem we had, though, was we had no money. So the genius standing in front of you told his friends, hey, you know, they're building houses down the street from our house. So this group of kids ran over there in the middle of the night, and we jumped the fence and we stole some lumber. As we were building the Empire State Building, we cut out little windows for the building. And I said to myself, hey, we need lights. So what we did was we ran to a construction zone where they were doing road construction. And we plucked off all those blinking lights from the cones and went back and we put them into the Empire State Building. Now, when we made this series of dumb decision after dumb decision, do you think these 17-year-olds were thinking about what could happen or whether or not we could be charged with a crime? Of course not. Is the fact that we got away with what we did okay? Absolutely not. Should we have been held accountable for what we did? Certainly. But as a prosecutor who deals with kids who commit crimes, we have to ask ourselves, what should accountability look like? Does accountability have to necessarily mean a formal court process or traditional forms of punishment like incarceration? Or when a kid makes a stupid mistake, does that necessarily have to result in a criminal conviction that might last into the time when they grow up to be an adult? For most cases, probably not. But before I go further, I need to emphasize that sadly, juveniles commit some of the most heinous crimes in our community. They rob people, they rape, and sometimes they murder. Now, when juveniles commit these very serious violent offenses, I'm here and happy to tell you that the King County Prosecutor's Office is incredibly good at handling those violent offenders. And accountability in those cases is often easy to ascertain because the most important thing that we have to consider is community safety. But the overwhelming majority of cases that we deal with in the juvenile unit, what accountability should look like is not so easily ascertained. And what can compound matters is the stark reality that some of these kids who come into contact with the juvenile justice system are facing challenges and obstacles that are largely out of their control. For example, many are homeless. Sadly, a large number of them suffer from mental illness. The vast majority of them, if not all of them, also struggle with drug addiction and alcohol abuse. And most disturbingly, this recent trend that a large proportion of the girls who come into contact with the juvenile justice system are also being sexually trafficked and abused. A recent King County study shows that over 2/3 of the kids that come into contact with the juvenile justice system are also involved in the child welfare system. Now, critics of an approach that says, hey, let's take into consideration what might be in the best interest of the juvenile as opposed to how to punish the juvenile, might ask themselves, well, Jimmy, aren't you just being soft on crime? Well, how I look at it, it's not so much being soft or tough on crime. I want to be smart about crime. And the research overwhelmingly shows that the more court-involved kids are, and the more we use incarceration as a tool for punishment and as a tool to change behavior, the worse off our community is. And I would rather choose to be smart. And we at the King County Prosecutor's Office, consistent with our mission statement, we are leaders and innovators in juvenile justice reform. One of the programs that we are very proud of is our 180 community-based diversion program. In this program, we pre-filing target kids who have committed their first or second minor offense. And we, as opposed to filing the charge into juvenile court, we invite them to a workshop where they meet community leaders, talk to these people about the decisions that they made in their lives in the past and how they turned their lives around and did their 180. It's a powerful program that's been researched by the University of Washington, and the results have been outstanding. In 2013, we diverted over 300 cases from the juvenile justice system, and in 2014, we're looking to divert many, many more. Another program that we're incredibly proud of is our truancy dropout prevention program. Not many people know that the King County Prosecutor's Office runs a program that deals with truant youth, but in this program, what we try and do, instead of sending these kids to court, we work with the kids and the parents and the school administrators to re-engage the kids in school. What we have found is that education is the best crime prevention strategy out there. The statistics are sobering. Over 75% of the people who are currently in our prison system, 75% of those people do not have a high school diploma. Statistics also show that if you're a high school dropout, you're 3.5 times more likely to be incarcerated. Now, besides those two great programs that we run currently, we're also trying to push the envelope even further. Currently, we're collaborating with the City of Seattle and King County Superior Court to see how we can bring in principles of restorative justice into the juvenile justice system to more effectively hold juveniles accountable and to also create a greater sense of healing and participation for crime victims and the greater community. One program that we're also working on that I'm particularly proud of is our efforts to shift the dialogue on juvenile domestic violence and to look for ways in which we can move the services for these families in crisis upstream so that they don't have to wait for court intervention before they can get the desperate services that the youth needs and the parents need. Now, the question that we have to ask ourselves is, are these programs working? Does diverting kids away from the criminal justice system, does that benefit our community? Well, the statistics say that it does. Over the last decade, we've seen juvenile crime rates plummet. Over the last 10 years, 10 years ago, our office received over 10,000 referrals from law enforcement asking us to charge juveniles with crimes. Of those 10,000 cases, we filed over 5,000 of those. Last year, in 2013, the referral numbers dropped from 10,000 10 years ago to less than 4,500. And of those 4,500 cases, we only filed 1,800. During that same period of time, we've also seen the average daily population in juvenile detention drop. 10 years ago, we were looking at average daily populations well over 200 kids every day, which had juvenile detention bursting at the seams. Today, our average daily population hovers around 50, and there are days when that number drops below 30. Now, again, going back to the critics who might say this approach is being soft on criminals. Again, whether it's soft or tough, the statistics overwhelmingly say that it's a smart thing to do, and frankly, it's the right thing to do. As long as there will be teenagers, there will be teenagers who make impulsive, rash, and stupid decisions. Some of them maybe even think that it would be a splendid idea to break into a construction zone and steal a bunch of lumber to recreate a scene from a King Kong movie. Now, when juveniles commit crimes in our community should never turn a blind eye to it. But we must also be mindful that not every kid who commits a crime needs to be labeled a criminal. Because, as we all know, a lot of kids grow out of it. Some of these kids grow up to be productive members of our community, and some of them even grow up to be prosecutors. Thank you.